Welcome to episode 67 of Drew's Sports Crew. Here on this Monday morning, myself, Drew Skyberg here, and I'll be joined later in the episode by Scott of Fantasia Sports. And we'll be talking about the NBA Finals in that second half of the episode. But first, we got to be doing our weekly segments here on this Monday morning, June 20th, 2022. And you know how we start. We got to do our shout-out of the week. This is an easy one for myself, Drew Skyberg, to choose. And I'm going with, you guessed it, Greg Counsell, with his 564th career victory as manager of the Milwaukee Brewers. He sets the franchise record for wins by a manager with 564. And he did that Wednesday night, and that was after that 10-2 win over the New York Mets. And this might surprise you. Greg Counsell is the longest tenured manager in the National League. I might be using that for trivia, so if you're listening, you have an advantage here. And he passed Phil Gardner, who he managed the team for 1,180 games, and that was between 92 and 99. He managed those 90 Brewers, and have you heard what the celebration was? Because it was Craig Counsell. He got showered by beer by his players, and that was with the post-game interview. He was still soaked, is what they said. And he got a nice gift from Mark Iannacio also, and then he got video messages from some of the greatest, Coach K, Mike Budenholzer, and Steve Kerr. So, those are some great guys to get it. And Counsell's 564 and 508 since taking over the Brewers May 4th, 2015. So, just wanted to include that there. He's been a great... he's changed this franchise for the better. They have had the most consecutive appearances they've had in their postseason, or their franchise history for the postseason. And they've just done things that you have not seen from this Brewers squad since they became a thing in Milwaukee in 1970. So, congrats to Craig Counsell and his Brewers, who are starting to win some games now, thankfully. And now let's go on to the stats of the week. Look, there was a lot of them here because NBA Finals wrap up, so that means we have to be doing some stats with that. So here they are. First one, shocker, like I said, coming from the NBA Finals. Andrew Wiggins is the first number one pick in the modern draft era since 1966. With his first All-Star selection and first title with a team he didn't debut with. Look, Andrew Wiggins is changing his narrative for the better for his career. Next one here, Gary Payton and Gary Payton II are the fifth father-son duo to each win an NBA championship. Gary Payton II's teammate, Klay Thompson, and his dad, Michael, are one of the other four duos. Had to include this as I am recording on Father's Day, so thank you to all the fathers out there. We all truly appreciate everything you do. So let's move on to the next stat here. Steph Curry he did average 30 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, and 5 assists per game in the finals for the second time in his finals career. And Curry is the fourth player to average 35 and 5 multiple times in the finals. And he's with a pretty good list here. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and Jerry West. Look at that. Look, Mike Trout cannot stop hitting home runs, and the night of June 17th, he mashed his 7th multi-home run game, or it might have been the 16th, against the Mariners in his career, and he tied for the most by any active player versus any single opponent. Aaron Judge and Gleyber Torres both have 7 multi-home run games against the Orioles, who they have dominated. Here's one with NCAA ratings. And I'm sure we'll talk about this in the second half with the finals, but have to read this. So the 2022 NBA Finals Game 6 had 13.99 million. And listen how this stacks up to other finals here. In college, the NCAA Tournament Championship game, the final, 17 million views compared to the 13.99 NBA Finals had in Game 6. And the Duke University of North Carolina game, 17.6 million compared to the 13.99. I also saw the MLB World Series, Game 6 had more listeners or viewers than the NBA Finals Game 6. So that is an interesting stat there, and that's something the NBA will have to look into. We got more NBA ones. Look, it's an NBA Finals. Kind of like I was New York Yankees last week on the podcast. We have to talk about the Warriors. After winning 5 titles as a player, Steve Kerr wins his 4th ring as a coach. He is the 7th individual to win 9+ championships as a player and coach. This was last achieved by a legend in Phil Jackson. One more here. It's a baseball one. Today was June 15th was when this happened. When I say that, it was the first day in recorded history that 2 immaculate innings were thrown on the same day. And you know what makes it even weirder? I'm sure people have heard that already, right? But did you know it was done by the same team, striking out the same 3 hitters? The Astros have thrown 9 of the 106 recorded immaculate innings, and they are tied with the Dodgers and Yankees for most all time. Look, talk about trivia. You could ask what team has the most immaculate innings thrown in the MLB history, and like Astros, Dodgers, Yankees. I would have guessed, teams that would have been around for a while. I might have said the Reds, right? I might have said the Cubs. But Dodgers and Yankees make sense. Look, they've had storied pitchers, and the Astros throw them in there, even though they're a newer franchise in the grand scheme of things. Houston found themselves on the list. Let's move on here now to On This Day. I'm trying to go through it as our NBA Finals one. I'm sure will be a long one here. So, on this day, June 20th, 2022 is the date, and wow, we have a lot of things for this as well. The New York Giants, the baseball team, they lead the Boston Braves 14-2 in the 9th, and guess what happened? The Giants win 21-12. So, look, a lot of runs were scored is what happened. I'm not sure how that happened, but it happened. On this day, in 1913, 3 of the first Yankees hit by pitch en route to a record 6 hit batsmen in a game in 1913. On this day in 1936, Jesse Owens of the United States sets a 100-meter record at 10.2 seconds. Wow, that's impressive. On this day in 1967, the Phillies' Larry Jackson beats New York Mets for 18th straight time. So I'm going to guess as a pitcher or as a manager there. On this day in 1968, Jim Hines, he becomes first person to run 100 meters in under 10 seconds. On this day in 1970, Orioles' Brooks Robinson gets his 2000th hit, and he did it on a 3-run home run. On this day in 1982, Pete Rose is 5th to appear in 3,000 games, and he joins Ty Cobb, Stan Musial, Hank Aaron, and Carl Yastrzemski there. And then on this day in 1986, Jim Fregosi replaces Tony La Russa as White Sox manager. On this day in 1993, NBA Finals, Chicago Bulls become the first team since legendary Boston Celtics of the 60s to win 3 consecutive titles. A 99-98 victory in Game 6 over the Phoenix Suns. Michael Jordan, Finals MVP for the 3rd straight year. On this day in 2006, NBA Finals, Miami Heat beat the Dallas Mavericks 95-92 in Game 6 for the first title in franchise history. Finals MVP, Marquette alumni Dwayne Wade there. That'll wrap up on this day then. And yeah, we're going to be rolling through these like I said. Now the Brewer Prediction Challenge. They had an interesting past week. We'll keep it brief on the recap with that. But look, they go play the Mets in a tough series in New York. Whatever. They could have easily won, the rubber match of that series, but it happens. They lost 5-4 that one. They sweep Cincinnati at Cincinnati. That was just a great series. Hunter Renfroe, have yourself a series. Willie Adames as well. Victor Caratini as well. All 3 of those guys were the main stories. But like I said, we're going to keep it brief on the recap, and we're going to be more looking towards what's going on in next week's slate, starting today now. So, the 7-game slate, here it is. They have a 4-game series at home against the Cardinals, and then they have a 3-game series at home against the Blue Jays. So that is something there. Monday's promo is $5.64 beers for the 564 wins. Tuesday and Wednesday, season seat holder days, kids and senior discount day. Then on Thursday, and then they have Miller Lite Beer Pen on Friday. They have Halfway to Christmas then on Saturday. And then on Sunday, the Corbin Burns bobblehead. That is going to be a prized possession. If you can get to the ballpark on June 26th, I would go do so. That bobblehead is going to be something else. So, I just keep that in mind. Record prediction-wise, I am going 4-3. I say they split the series with the Cardinals. And then I think they'll take 2 out of 3 from the Blue Jays. Look, I'm looking forward to it. I think it looks like Burns is going to be in line for 2 starts this week as well. So it looks like he might be starting Monday, Saturday, Monday, Sunday. So when you're starting Corbin Burns, if he could start on his bobblehead day, ooh, that's going to be a great game to go to. So, I mean, that'll wrap it up then for the Brewer Prediction Challenge. Hopefully I can keep myself on my winning ways. It's been a tough stretch. It's been a tough stretch because the Brewers play bad. I usually am going over 500 with this squad because they have the matchups and they have the ability. So I got to root for my team. So that'll wrap it up here for this first half of the episode. And then now let's go and talk about the NBA Finals. Episode 67 resumes on the podcast with our guest here, Scott Pisapia of Fantasia Sports. And Scott, how are you doing? Where are we doing an NBA Finals recap, as the title says? But yeah, Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. I just got back from Washington State, visiting my dad for Father's Day. Had some pizza for lunch. Probably going to have some leftover pizza for dinner, so I'm happy camper.
Don't blame you. And look, NBA Finals come and gone already. 6 games. Game 7 would have been on Father's Day, but it didn't happen, and Scott was able to go get some pizza. So, yeah, I mean, that's what we're here to talk about, the NBA Finals. And I mean, starting before we talk about what happened in those finals, Scott, who did you have going into the finals?
Yeah, so I was rooting for Boston, and I have a few ties to the Boston team, and that's why I was rooting for them. But deep down, if I had to bet money, I told all my friends this, I'm rooting for Boston, but I think Golden State's going to win it. So it kind of played out, unfortunately, as I predicted. Who do you have?
So, looking at it for when the finals, because I thought it was going to be a Bucks Suns rematch, before this started, and I thought the Suns were going to win. Look, that Suns team, phenomenal. I thought they were, top and bottom. But now with the Warriors and Celtics, I don't know what I thought coming into it, because I was like, okay, well, the Bucks lost to the Celtics, so I'd rather, and me being a Bucks fan, I'd rather have the Celtics win, if that makes sense, because having the team that beat you, it just feels better. I personally, I thought the Warriors, might have the edge just with the experience, right? I think certainly we'll see Tatum and Brown in our finals, and I think they'll win them. But I think, they just got, with the experience that Golden State starting 5 has, that's kind of just what put it over the top, in my opinion. So I had Warriors as well. But
I think the Warriors, as weird as this sounds, having already won 3 rings, I think they had a chip on their shoulder. And you could kind of tell, I mean, Clay coming back from injury, but was fired up about some of the, the stuff that was being said about the Warriors around the league, especially from, I think he pointed out some of the players from Memphis talking smash on Twitter and whatnot. And Draymond, the same thing. Steph was being kind of chippy and was calling back some things that were said from the past year. And so I think all 3 of those guys kind of played this year like they had a chip on their shoulder, and it showed.
I think especially with Steph and his legacy, right? The big thing with him was not having a Finals MVP before the series, and that's something which he's successful no matter what, regardless of an NBA Finals MVP. But still, his legacy, when he's getting compared to other guys, in the NBA 75 or like where they rank him, right? The big thing was, he didn't have a Finals MVP. He didn't perform well in their previous NBA Finals. where he didn't perform up to Steph Curry standards. And in this finals, that's what he did. He performed. He tied his postseason or his NBA Finals record for most 3-pointers in a series. He showed up regardless. I know there's a tough game in there, but look, Steph Curry still solidified his NBA Finals legacy now too. So I think that was the big thing with his chip on his shoulder. But yeah, you mentioned Draymond and Clay and those guys, right? Jordan Poole still has stuff to prove, right? Being an emerging star even with the postseason and the regular season he had. But going into these 6 games, right, Scott? So game 1, and these games were then so game 1 then Celtics. The thing with these games, Scott, which to just take a look at the whole series, none of them were particularly close. I know the games were close to up to the end, and then it might with free throws and stuff. But look, the closest were 10-point games, so it wasn't necessarily we had these nail biters. So that's what really hurt, I think, viewership wise in this NBA Finals. Scott, I don't know what you thought about that.
Yeah. What was the stat? I think the Warriors came back from down 10, like 3 or so times in the series. And looking at the scores right now, I think, you're looking at 16-point game, 12-point game, 19-point game, 10, 13, and 10. So again, like it never came down to the last shot, exactly like you said. And, the NBA is kind of in a unique spot right now. There's so much offensive skill on the court at one time. It's rare that you come across a team that all 5 guys can't shoot it from 3. And so it does open the floodgates up a little bit for blowouts and for games to be a little bit, lopsided if one team happens to be shooting better than the other, and they're shooting a lot of threes like the Warriors. You're bound to have some games that are 15, 20-point games. And so one way or the other, if they shoot poorly, it's probably a 15-point game not in their favor. If they shoot well, they're looking at a blowout win. So it's interesting. And I'm curious if that has to play a part. You mentioned that the viewership was down. I didn't see those numbers.
Oh, you want the numbers?
How low were they?
All right, Scott. So the NBA Finals, first the NCAA tournament blew them out of the water, right? With the average, game 6, the viewership was 13.99 million. And the final for the NCAA tournament championship game is 17 million. And then Duke and University of North Carolina, that game was 17.6 million compared to the peak was the 13.99. And then also, I don't have the exact number up here, but the MLB World Series game 6. So with the Braves and the Astros, that game had more viewers than the NBA Finals game 6. So that was something that blew, because the NBA or with MLB with Major League Baseball, a topic here on this podcast was when the World Series took place, viewership was down, but it was still higher than the NBA Finals. So that was something that, was a little alarming considering NBA has been, a sport that's kind of taken a lot of viewers too. And they've all in the last 20 years, right? They've been ahead of baseball. So that's been an alarming, stat to look at.
That's crazy. I wonder if when MLB playoffs were in full swing, if we were a little bit more in lockdown from COVID, and so people were kind of staying in the house and, kicking it on their couch, spending more time inside, versus right now, things are kind of opening up. Summer's, right in front of us, or we're right in the full swing of summer. I wonder if people are kind of, once NBA finals games are on, they're kind of heading out the door, going to a bar or going to a restaurant, and not tuning in as much. Because I would be if you would have had me put $1,000 down on whether MLB or NBA got more viewers in Game 6, I would have 1,000% put it on NBA. So that's shocking to me.
Yeah, and you're right. There are certainly some variables in it. Certainly, with times when it took place, right, with baseball taking place, it was late October, early November, and then summer. It was nice outside. People are out and about. There's certainly variables like that, but the viewership it was up 22% still from last year, right?
Okay.
But if you look what last year it was Milwaukee and Phoenix. The market. Look at the market that it was this year, right? So, and I was comparing. And with the 2019 NBA Finals was the last one that a lot of people thought was a fair comparison, right? With COVID and just overall, like the bubble was one, and then the Bucks won with two small market teams. But
Right.
so in order to kind of keep the data more, comparable to include Golden State and like bigger market teams in it, basically. So, Golden State, it was average around 14 million viewers, like we said, and it was up from last year's Game 6. But I guess the peak,
Wow.
I did include the peak though. It was 16.8 million, and that was Game 6, and that was that was like in the third quarter. So right, with people, like we said, games kind of got a little out of hand in some aspects. But looking at the games, right, Game 1, like we said, Celtics go on a 1-0. They go up 1-0, and Jaylen Brown was a story for me in this series. I know him being on the losing side, but there's a clip of him going to the finals in 2016, I believe, and he's saying it was Golden State was in it actually, so it was the Cleveland series, and he was talking about how, hey, one day I'm going to be here and I'm going to be an NBA champion, and that was cool for me to hear that, and then plus with him he showed up for the Celtics. He was arguably their most consistent player throughout the series, considering Tatum had a very lackluster Game 1. I don't know what you saw, Scott, in this first game, but certainly a big win there for the Celtics, considering how Tatum was playing and Jaylen Brown stepping up.
Right. Yeah. I remember when I was watching that game, the thing I was feeling was they looked poised for how young they were. They looked really poised, and they kind of had Golden State on the ropes. You could tell like Steph and Draymond and Clay were kind of looking at each other like, all right, what's our game plan here? Like, what changes are we going to make? It felt like the Warriors were a little bit on their heels, and Boston is actually, both of these teams are great defensively, but I feel like Boston is kind of nationally known as like, okay, they're going to hang their hat on their defense, whereas the Warriors have great defense, but they're known for their offense a little bit more. And Boston was just roughing it up, mucking it up, making it, a little bit of a nasty game. And I think that helped them out big time in Game 1. And Tatum at that point looked just very confident, very smooth. He looked like he knew what he was doing and had been there before. Obviously, you need to be able to do that for 7 games or however many games the series is going to last. And I think he got a bit burnt out. I know, having the athleticism that Golden State does, they were able to throw multiple bodies at him. And Andrew Wiggins is, athletically a great matchup for him. Good length, good size, good speed, good agility. And I think ultimately Jason Tatum got a bit worn down.
Yeah, and in this Game 1, 3 for 17 shooting for Tatum. It was one of his worst postseason, showcases, for his career.
Right.
And that was something. Al Horford was a guy, who throughout this whole postseason for the Boston Celtics really stepped up. And that Milwaukee series was a big story. And then in this game, he shoots 6 for 8 from 3. He puts up 26, and he was, their leading scorer.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Jaylen Brown also, like I said, putting up 24. Derek White was a guy too, 21 points. It was interesting, right? I mean, they acquire him at the deadline, right? And media, including like myself, a very underrated move is kind of what I highlighted it as, because not many people were talking about it. And throughout the postseason, there was games where he didn't get a lot of minutes, if not any. And then Game 1 of the finals gets almost 32 minutes. So that was a story there. And I don't know, what did you think about Derek White's impact, like this whole postseason for the Boston Celtics?
Yeah, I mean, the guys on both lineups, Boston and Golden State, a big reason why they both made it to the finals and are teams that will likely be tough outs again next year is because their role players buy into their roles. And, they have guys on their team that are willing to sacrifice and do the little things and fill in where needed. Derek White's a great example of that. He has an interesting backstory. I don't know if you know it, but came from a Division II college, did well there. I think he was kind of just like not scouted out of high school, went D2, ended up transferring to Colorado. At Colorado, had a great season or multiple seasons. I can't remember how many he played there, and then ended up getting into the league. But he's a guy that's obviously had to fight for everything he's ever had in basketball from day one, high school, college, and now in the league. And he doesn't look scared when he's out there. He's, he comes in and he makes his guy guard him. Whereas, some guys come off the bench and they're a little bit shy, a little bit timid, and you can kind of almost forget about them. Derek White's not going to let you do that, and I think he does a good job of being in attack mode for them, getting to the rim, and just drawing defenders and being able to kick. And he fills in a lot of needs that they have as kind of like a combo guard for them.
Yeah, and that's a great story. I've not heard that before, so thank you for sharing. And yeah, I mean the Warriors, they got to come back and after game one, that ending, and look, they bounce back in game two, and they go up 107-88. They win that game. That was one of them where it just got out of hand, right? I mean, in the fourth quarter, Tatum does show up though in this game, puts up 28. The big story for me was, I mean, we talked about these like impact role players who buy into their role, like you said. Kevon Looney is one of those guys. Like, I mean, this postseason, he had. I was reading stat because we do a segment on this show called Stats of the Week for the first half of the episode, and he had some crazy stats on some of his double lines. And look, because that was the first time he scored, or a double or something since his college days or something. So look, guy Kevon Looney shows up big, 6 for 6. He goes from the field as well, 7 boards, 3 steals, 1 block. Like, I mean, these impact role players for this Golden State squad is just what, like we've said it. It's like we're sound like a broken record here, but that's just how it was. Like that's just what put this team over the top. And yeah, Celtics get the series tied. I mean, the Warriors get it tied here, 1-1 here. So Scott, what'd you think of game 2 here?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of over. It felt like middle of the third quarter, just after halftime. So, but Looney's a great piece for them, like you said. I think he's a guy that you'd almost rather have on Golden State than maybe someone that's a bigger name, more prolific as far as just name power. Like throw out like a DeMarcus Cousins or something. Looney is the guy that actually is going to be the right glue for them. He's going to do the dirty things. He's going to rebound. He's going to set big screens. He's going to be able to defend and foul hard when needed. And yeah, he's a great fit for them. Though, the juxtaposition from game 1 to game 2 is Al Horford turns around game 2 and has 2 points, which is tough for Boston. He had a great playoff run, so you can't knock him too much, but it is what it is. He had 2 points in 28 minutes. So that hurts from their starting 4.
Yeah. That was something, and that's the beauty of basketball, right? You can go one game, score, be the leader for a squad, and the next one, boom, 2 points. I mean, that's just sports sometimes, and that just happened for Horford. Game 3 then takes place. Celtics go up, they win this game, they go up 2-1. So that's kind of where we felt some momentum maybe shifting. I know ESPN was all over this with their basketball index. They were favoring the Celtics the whole series even. And that was something to see. And look, they take care of the Warriors in this game. Big story in this one was the Draymond. I always take this game. I remember moments. This kind of felt like the Draymond Green game in a bad reason, because this was one of his worst games, it seemed, in his career in the postseason. Maybe 30 plays almost 35 minutes, 2 points only, and fouls out. So that was something. There were 2 turnovers as well. Just not a good showing there for Green. And that's kind of what hurt this Warriors squad. I know you can't just point fingers at him, right? I mean, there's other guys too. Wiggins played well though. And look, Scott, game 3, Celtics up 2-1. How are you feeling after this game? And just what were your thoughts like with Draymond Green?
Yeah, I was feeling good because I was rooting for the Celtics, but whenever I was seeing like those headlines from ESPN or other outlets that were saying, Celtics are still the favorite here, Celtics, or across the board, every analyst was picking them. That kind of worried me. I kept feeling like, okay, it's 2-1, but I don't feel safe or sound or confident. You're going up against a team that just has so much firepower, and all it takes is, for them to get in a rhythm once, and that rhythm may never leave. And I can't remember if this was the game or not, but there was a shot of Steph on the bench at one point in this series when they were down, and he had a towel over his head, I believe, and was kind of just like smirking. And everyone kind of grabbed that shot and put it online as a meme, and was basically saying like, this is the moment we're going to look back on when Steph got pissed. and took over the series. And if it was this game, I believe it was, he did just that. He took over the rest of the series and really just, carried the Warriors back from down 2-1 to their 4th title.
I think it was. I think you are.
Do you know what
right.
I'm talking about? That
Yep,
picture that was kind of going around
with him looking down with
and he was kind of smirking, almost like he had that evil smile look. And I believe, was this the game that the Boston fans were being pretty unruly and chant some stuff?
Yep. This was the game. That's why the Draymond Green game, because game 3 and 4 at the Garden. So game 4 you can also include in that as well. But I think
they poked the bear a little bit there.
They did, yeah, and that's how it's been. I know when in the Bucks series there too, playing 4 games in Boston. That's just how it is, right? I mean, those fans are very passionate about their team, and they will do whatever it takes, and they'll try to make an impact in the game as much as they can, and that's how they are. And look, game 4 then takes place, and another 10-point win here. 107-97. The big story of this game was Steph Curry, right? 43 points, goes off. And with that game, this is why I think, NBA or the finals MVP was easily, I mean, Curry was not an easy choice. And I think this was a big game, right? If you lose this game, you're down 3-1. We know the story, 3-1, hard to come back, right? And what happens is Steph Curry, he puts up 43, 14 for 26 from the field, 7 for 14 from 3, 10 boards, 4 assists. He puts up a monstrous game 4 stat line. He keeps his team in it, and he keeps his team, not 3-1, but now 2-2. So I think that's just a big swing there.
He woke him up, or excuse me, Boston woke him up. I think the game before, them getting blown out, them talking smack from the crowd, him on the bench kind of soaking in the loss. And you could almost like see him looking into the future and picturing game 4. And he came out ready to play. And imagine how fun it would be to play with Steph Curry. The guy's running around, jacking up threes from half court. Smallest guy on the court, or at least seems to be, and is able to do everything. And if you're Clay or Wiggins or Jordan Poole, I mean, it just opens up the world for you. You're able to go against second, third, fourth defenders. He's, Steph's drawing multiple every time he has the ball in his hand. And it'd be hard to not have a leader like Steph, who plays with so much joy, plays so fast, plays so energetic, and not have that be contagious. And you could tell, his teammates were on the same vibe once they saw him get going.
Yeah, Steph Curry just has a way with this Warriors squad. And Klay Thompson, a guy who we haven't talked a lot yet so far. I mean, he was second lead scorer in this game. And you talked the chip on his shoulder with him too, coming back from injuries, right? He went 7 for 17 from the field, 4 for 10 from 3. Klay Thompson was just, it felt like he was all reliable, right? I mean, they need a shot. Klay Thompson gets it. And that's kind of that's how he's been in his career. And just solid perimeter defender as well. Just a guy who's Coach Steve Kerr is just, you got to love to have as well. And perfect compliment to Curry. And it just helped this Warriors squad even this game up here. And then we have to go to game 5 then. And that also, right, Celtics won 1-2 games and they won no more. So game 5, then boom, another 10-point win, 104-94. The Warriors take the 3-2 lead here. And Al Horford again, 9 points only. That's the story here. I mean, minus 19-2 for the plus minus. And Horford kind of felt like that guy when he played well. The Celtics played well. And when he had a tough game, tough stretch, you could see it with the Celtics team. And then plus guys like Gary Payton II, coming up big game, 15 points in this game. That was a story there too. And just an overall balanced scoring attack is kind of what put the Celtics away in this game, with Wiggins 26, Clay with 21, Curry with 16. We'll get back to his performance. And then Gary Payton II with 15 and Poole with 14. So Scott, this game was not in the ordinary for Steph, and just for the overall scoring attack here for the Warriors. So what were you thinking in this game? I thought this was kind of like an outlier in this series based on player performance.
Yeah, this was a game that, I think early on in the series, Wiggins wasn't getting mentioned much. Then the middle of the series, they started talking about him a little bit here and there as a nice little side weapon for them offensively, also some length defensively, and then being able to lead the Warriors in scoring in this game. The narrative of Andrew Wiggins has been shifting. It went from he was kind of a bust, not a bust, but like people were saying, he was not the greatest number one pick of all time, or not even a great one. I think Cleveland ended up trading him for Kevin Love as soon as they drafted him. He goes to Minnesota, doesn't really live up to hype. Now he fits in with this Warriors team in a really great way. One, he doesn't have the pressure on him. He doesn't have to be the man. He doesn't have to be the second man. Doesn't have to be the third man. He's basically the fourth man behind Draymond. And so he gets to just like have fun again, play free, play athletic. And he does a lot of things for him. He rebounds well. He's able to knock down some mid-range jumpers, get to the rim, and add some length for them defensively. And I think he's a huge pickup. And I think the Warriors kind of knew that they had that. They just needed to see him and how he would gel once Clay came back. And if you look at Clay, I think Clay came back with a vengeance. Like, I think he's sick of the narrative of the Warriors are beyond their prime. I think he's sick of the narrative of that they could only do it with KD. I think he's sick of the narrative that he wasn't going to come back as a good player. He seemed to be really passionate this series and almost a little bit angry. And he played like he had something to prove, and he definitely did that in this game. 21 points in 40 minutes. When he's knocking down shots, he looks healthy.
Yeah, and also to piggyback off the narrative thing, right? He wasn't named all NBA or the NBA top 75, NBA 75. He didn't make the list, and that was, a big controversy throughout the year. And, that was something certainly was on his shoulders throughout this series. But, yeah, I mean, with Steph Curry, too, we got to talk about, right? I mean, this was a game where it almost, because he was the lock for NBA Finals MVP, after game. It seemed still, but after this game 5, I mean, there's certainly some questions, right? Puts up a stinker with 0 for 9 from 3, 16 points. I know there was, people are pushing for a Wiggins almost after this game. If Wiggins had a big game 6 and Curry might have not, like it was possible. Andrew Wiggins could have been your NBA Finals MVP just because of his consistency throughout the series. I still think, Curry might have still gotten it just based on his name and his performance. But we saw like Andre Iguodala got it before in 2015. I was fine with Curry, after game 6, which we'll talk about. So let's roll with that. And then I'm going to talk to you about NBA Finals MVP stuff after we talk about game 6. So
yes,
game 6 here. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think, a big thing for Curry winning the Finals MVP is just how much is on his plate versus a guy like Wiggins. He's just got to carry so much of the load, and so much attention is on him that his, good games, I think, are much more valuable than a guy like Wiggins if he has a good game. So my vote would be for Steph, and I think it was, for sure warranted. And it's because he's drawing so much attention, has so much pressure on him, and he's still able to perform, most of the nights. After
game 6 too, I mean, it has to be Steph, like unanimously, right? Game 6, Warriors, they hold off the Celtics. They try to make a little comeback in the 4th at the Garden, but 103-90 was the final. Warriors are your NBA champions, but Andrew Wiggins plays 43, almost 44 minutes, puts up 18 points, 7 for 18 from the field. He had a big game in this too, but like you said, Curry's drawing all this attention. Steph Curry puts up 34 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and he shot 57% from the field and 6 for 11 from 3. So, talk about winning basketball, winning numbers there, playing well for this squad. Jordan Poole puts up 15 and then got included, like I said, Wiggins 18, and that was 12 and 12 then from Green and Thompson. So getting Draymond Green in the scoring book here. was nice. But yeah, Tatum here again, like you mentioned, he kind of seemed gassed throughout the series. Game 6 was kind of one, plays over 40 minutes, 6 for 18 from the field, 13 points. Not a great showing. Al Horford then shows up still for the squad, 19 points. Jaylen Brown, though, a guy who I mentioned who, played arguably Mr. Consistent for the Celtics squad, 34 points, led the way for them. And yeah, overall, Scott, in this game, what were your takeaways in this game 6?
One thing that I really took away from this game is just how emotional Steph got at the end. I mean, a guy that's won 3 championships already, you would think maybe a little bit that winning his 4th would be kind of like a been there, done that type vibe. And it totally wasn't. He was crying at the end of the game, very emotional, was crying throughout much of the celebration there right after the game. And I just love that. It's cool to see that much passion come from a guy that dedicates so much of his life to the sport that he loves. And I think, a big part of this is that he had to prove that he could do it again, on his own, quote unquote. And so I think he was hearing a lot of whispers that, he didn't have the legacy necessarily because Kevin Durant was able to carry these Warrior teams, quote unquote, to 2 titles. And so I think being able to win it on his own with, the guys that he came in with, Clay and Draymond, brought some tears to his eyes. And it was cool to see that and see all these guys that kind of have cool different backstories be able to win another one and really, cement themselves as a dynasty.
Yeah, and that's what we saw here in this game 6. I think, going through, like you said, it was a special one because they go from worst back to first in a span of 2 years, right? I mean, if you look pandemic shortened season, they lost 50 games in a shortened season. And, people were wondering where they go from here, right? Clay was on the shelf with an injury. Green was hurt. Curry broke his hand, I think. So that was the story. Kevin Durant was gone. And look what happened. They come back, and you thought like they got guys like James Wiseman. You thought like if you would have told me they would have won it all 2 years later, I thought Wiseman would have stepped up. I thought there would have been other guys, right? But that wasn't the case. I mean, Jordan Poole's emergence was the story. And then, of course, guys like Kevon Looney stepping up, those role players really, I think were what put them over the top with Wiggins as well. Got to include him in. But yeah, Steph Curry, finals MVP. We both agree on that. But any other thoughts here from this game in the series?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of turned out how I thought. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I'm a big Blazers fan. And I have a friend that was very nice and invited me to go watch the Warriors and Blazers this year. And I got to sit very close, a few rows back from the court. And I knew when I was watching them that night, I went early to go watch Steph and Clay warm up. I want, as a basketball coach and former basketball player, I wanted to see these guys up close and personal and just kind of see how they work. And there was a few things that I took away from that game that I was like, oh, okay, these guys might be the champions this year. One is people showed up an hour early to watch Golden State warm up. And there was way more fans in the arena that night that were Golden State fans than Portland fans. And I might be off a little bit, but it was pretty darn close. Second thing is they played at a speed that I hadn't seen any other team play with this year. They looked like they were just a notch or two quicker than everyone else. And the third thing is they had a good mix of speed, agility, shooting, but also some toughness. I liked Looney. I liked Kuminga. I thought those guys really were good pieces for them. And so I would say, the thing I'm most intrigued about from watching this series is what are they going to do next? What is Boston going to do next year? What is Golden State going to do next year? What pieces do they need to add? What do they need to be thinking about as draft time comes up? Those are the questions that I'm kind of interested in now.
Yeah, and let's talk about what's next here for these squads. So, I mean, you might have guessed it, right? NBA championship futures are already out because that's just how it is. That's how Vegas operates. The Warriors are already your favorites, plus 460. And then the Celtics are second, plus 650. So does that surprise you there? I mean, having Warriors and Celtics 1 and 2. Personally, I am not surprised that the Celtics are back up there. And not surprised that the Warriors are either.
No, I'm not surprised that they're 1 and 2. But I would say that 3 and 4 are nipping on their heels. I wouldn't say they're like a clear cut like one
Yeah.
and two. I would say the Bucks are right there.
Yes.
Suns will be right there. Heat will be right there. And there's always a few players like Memphis will probably be in the mix.
I
There's a
got them
few
for you.
players. Yeah,
You want to
let's
hear
hear
them?
them.
So
Yep.
it goes Warriors, Celtics, Nets at 3. And then
Nets.
Nets at 3, plus 700. Bucks at 4, plus 750. I personally not no bias intended here. I would have Bucks at 3 because I mean the Bucks have Chris Middleton. I know if it's in if and but I think the Bucks, if they had Middleton, like they could have been who knows where. I mean they could have easily been back. So Clippers are at 5, plus 850. Suns are 6th, plus 950. Heat then here's the big cutoff. So it goes from 950 to plus 1500 from Suns to Heat. So that's something.
Wow.
76ers plus 1600 and Nuggets plus 1700. And Grizzlies and Mavericks are tied for plus 1900 and Lakers plus 2600. And then the big cutoffs. So what do you think about that? I think it's a little interesting.
The ones that stood out to me is one, I'm a little bit of a hater, but I just do not have faith in the Nets. I just think that the Bucks just have that that sauce that a team needs, the chemistry, the toughness, the team leader, the star being bought in. I don't see that from KD and Kyrie.
No.
Man, I don't know. If I had to bet money, I would bet money on the Bucks being ahead of the Nets, and it wouldn't even be close. I don't know if I buy into the Clippers. How high were they? 6th?
The Clippers are 5th. They are right behind the Bucks. I
don't buy that.
Yeah, and I'm guessing, right? I mean, speculation, right? Kawhi, like they're predicting a healthy Clippers squad, and they're, I can see them, of course, in this mix. But ahead of the Suns, I guess, are they thinking the Suns? It was just this 2-year kind of stretch. I'm not sure what I see from this because I mean the Suns are coming off, so they won the NBA, or they made it to the NBA Finals. They lose in 6 games. They're 2 games away from winning it all, right? They have one of the most impressive regular seasons in NBA history. And then I know they come up in the playoffs and they come up short, but taking that all into account, I still think, they should be higher maybe than the 6th best odds, but that might be just me.
It's so early, so it's really hard to tell.
It's the way too early futures
and drafts and all that, but name of the game, the early talk. So, I wouldn't even be surprised if like the Lakers are better than the Clippers, and I don't buy into the Lakers at all. Like I think they're kind of all over the place with what they're doing, but maybe bringing in Darvin Ham is a good move to bring out their defense, make them tougher. Is that a Milwaukee guy?
Yeah. Bucks was Budenholzer's top assistant guy. Yeah, the Lakers got a good one. So
well, that's good. That's what they needed, is they need someone to come in and kind of direct traffic and actually make some big decisions and kind of get them to do what he says. The thing I'm worried about is LeBron is basically their GM, and I don't think he's a good general manager. I think he's a great basketball player, but they like last year, I'm guessing under LeBron's guidance, get Westbrook when they were in talks with Buddy Hield. And Buddy would have been a great move for them. And, no offense to Westbrook, but Westbrook just is not a good fit with those guys. That was
atrocious.
And so, I'm curious to see what moves the Lakers make. I'm curious to see, CP3 at some point is going to get old and is going to look old and is going to play old. And so I'm curious, if this upcoming year is maybe that year. The Clippers will obviously be good if Kawhi and Paul George are both there, but I'm also not a big believer in Paul George as far as being like a leader and a winner goes. Obviously Kawhi has proven himself, so you can't say that about him, but I don't know. I have a lot of question marks about those teams, the Clippers, the Lakers. I'm curious about where were they at on the list?
Lakers?
Yeah.
So Lakers are plus 2,600. They are behind the Mavericks, Grizzlies, Nuggets, 76ers, Heat.
Okay. So that makes sense, though. I mean, everyone's hurt. AD's been hurt.
Yeah.
Even LeBron had a little stint of being hurt. So, but basically what I'm saying is like the king of LA. I don't know if it's the Clippers right now. I think the Clippers and the Lakers are both big question marks, and I'd be curious to see which stars show up from those two teams.
Yeah. So if you had to give me a way too early NBA Finals, just the matchup, I'm not gonna ask for a winner. Where would you go with this? I'll share one too. Let's hear yours.
Okay. I'll go a little bit fun and a little bit off the rails, a smidge. I'll go Nuggets versus the Bucks.
Okay.
Nuggets versus the Bucks.
I like it. I'm going Bucks Mavericks is where I'll go. I love the Christian Wood acquisition. I just think, Luka, they come up short this year, and I don't know. I think Luka's due to make a finals appearance. I don't know if it's gonna be next year, but I know he'll make one. What were you gonna say?
Well, I'm curious. So you're kind of buying into that Luka can kind of just carry them all the way there. Do you buy into the rest of the roster?
I buy into, I did not before the Christian Wood acquisition, if that makes sense. Because right, I mean, you can't ask for Luka and then have guys like Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock being your other guys but I buy into Jalen Brunson. Look what he's done. If they can keep him, right, that's gonna be the story. Keep Brunson along with Luka, and have a guy like Christian Wood. If Christian Wood can stay healthy and perform at the level he's performed at, I think why not?
Yeah, no, I hear you. And Brunson is a great player. Christian Wood's a good pickup. That's kind of the reason why I was thinking the Nuggets might have a little run in them. Is obviously they got Joker, but you're bringing back Michael Porter Jr. I would imagine is going to be healthy and ready to play. And to me, he's kind of the piece that if he decides to show up and stay healthy and ball out, they're going to be very, very tough. I got to watch him in high school. I'm from Washington State, and he transferred into a school in Washington State called Nathan Hale, which is known as like a very terrible basketball program within the metro area of Seattle. And he came in with his brother, and, of course he's a lottery pick. And I think at that point he was the number one player in the nation. They come in, they go 35-0, win the national championship at this high school. And he's the best player I've ever seen in high school. Kevin Love used to be that person, but he passed him in my eyes as far as just high school play. And I say all that to say that they have a very talented piece in Michael Porter. And so if they're able to bring back a guy with that much talent, and if he's able to stay healthy and able to, play his role, which is you're not the man anymore, you're playing off Joker. But if he's able to be a guy that's like teetering towards an all-star, if that's the case, then I think the Nuggets could be really, really darn tough.
No, I've always been buying in on Michael Porter. I just hope, right, it's his back. His back's been the problem for his career so far. And
I think they got it held together with like a Band-Aid.
Yeah, and well, the whole story was, they kept him out for a couple games, see if it was better, because they're trying to avoid the season-ending surgery. Like they were basically avoiding the inevitable, right? Mm-hmm. And now, I mean, they finally went about it, and they got him the season-ending surgery. Hopefully, this is the one that does it. Keeps them together, right? Because, like you said, I mean, the Denver Nuggets are a better basketball team when Michael Porter Jr. is on the floor for them.
Right. Can I switch gears on you and ask you a question?
Let's hear it.
Okay. Thinking upcoming draft.
Yep.
Remove the teams and their needs. Just think like you're starting a franchise. Who do you go number one pick? And I'll give you some time. The three names that everyone's talking about is Jabari Smith from Auburn, Paulo Banchero from Duke, and Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga. Those are like the three big names. If you were just starting a franchise and it wasn't Orlando, so you're not thinking about their team needs right now, who are you selecting?
I am going. See, Chet worries me. He worries me. And I really, he's my favorite prospect in the draft. But I am going. See, if I'm number one overall, I'm either going Paulo or Chet, I think. Nothing against Jabari Smith's game. It's just, I think I'd go with one of those guys. Another guy who I like, though, Jay Ivey out of Purdue. Right. He's like one of my favorites. So I might even just say him too.
Right. That wouldn't even be dumb. If you think about the stars of our game right now, obviously there are some guys that are big. KD's big, LeBron's big, Joker's big, but a lot of the stars are Steph. There's Kyrie, there's Damian Lillard. There's a bunch of guys that are 6'3", 6'4". And I think we get a little bit caught up once the draft comes around of like, oh man, this guy's 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", 7 feet. When in reality, like a lot of those guys that are 6'9" to 7'1" are just playing a role on a team. And a lot of times the guy that is averaging the most and is, counted on to carry the team offensively is a guy like Jaden Ivey, who's a 6'4" guard. So I don't think that's a dumb pick at all. I think if I had the number one pick, I'd probably go Paulo, although I can see a case for all three. Paulo to me just looks maybe the most NBA ready. His body's crazy. 6'10", 250 pounds, great footwork, comes from, the Seattle area where he's playing with, Seattle pros day in and day out in the summer every year since he was probably like a freshman in high school. So I don't think he's going to be scared of the moment, but I am curious about Chet. I think Chet is like one of those people that everyone is ready to see and have their eye on. He's 7 feet and they have him listed at 195 pounds, but I think that's the big question mark is like, can he hang physically? And is he able to, defend a guy that's 6'11" and 260?
Yeah, I mean, those are the concerns I have too with a guy like Chet Holmgren. And and if he can develop his frame right, I think that's going to be the story, right? Add some weight to what he has going. Because, I mean, in college, he was able to handle, but again, that was college. Look, Luka Garza was the top player in college, a year before, and his first year in the NBA, it wasn't great. I mean, and it's nothing against Luka Garza. It's just that's just how it was. If you're the best, I mean, if you're the best player in college, you're not necessarily going to be the best player in the NBA level. And I'm afraid to say, because Chet certainly is not Luka Garza in aspects, but I just am afraid Chet might take that same path, as Luka Garza. So I don't know, Scott. I think this NBA draft, though, is going to be a fun one.
For sure. I think Chet's got to be so sick of hearing about his weight at this point. He's probably been asked about his weight and just being able to handle his size like a million times by now. So he's probably smashing a protein shake as we speak. But, I think Chet's going to be an interesting one. Like, is he going to be a guy that plays like Kristaps, where he's in a lot of pick and pop situations and is doing a lot of stuff outside, maybe, and just maybe a rim protector defensively? But the people I have my eyes on, and of course, being a Portland guy and, big Blazer fan, they have the pick at 7. So I'm really curious what they do there.
Yeah, it depends, of course, who falls there, but we'll leave the NBA draft stuff, for our NBA draft preview here on this podcast. So we're going to wrap it up here, Scott. Do you want to shout yourself out? Where can people find, what you're part of, the group you are with?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm on the marketing team here at Fantasia Sports, and Fantasia Sports is the first fantasy sports app on the blockchain. And we're getting ready to launch our first season of season-long fantasy football. Cannot be more excited. I'm going to join like 100 leagues. We have free and paid leagues, and we have a bunch of killer features and benefits. I think we have the best season-long fantasy football platform out there. I could rant on and on about all of our different features. One of the big ones, and the one that I really like, being a penny pincher myself, is we have 0 platform fees. And I think that's, something that as a team that we're really excited about. So check us out, fantasia.app, fantasia.app, PHANTASIA.app. So check us out. Go join the wait list. Go join our Fantasia leagues and holla at me.
We will be tagging Fantasia on this episode when I air it. And also, you'll hear more about these leagues and stuff. I'll be joining them. I'm on the wait list already, right? So, and I assure you, you will hear more about this as on Wednesday. I'll be releasing a special announcement on the Instagram with Fantasia Sports. I'm really looking forward to this, and I know Scott is as well. Yeah, that'll wrap it up here for our socials here on the podcast. Instagram, Drew Sports Crew. That's also our Twitter as well, Facebook and YouTube, Drew's Sports Crew. So Yeah, that'll wrap it up here for myself, Drew Skyberg, signing off. So thank you all for listening to another episode of Drew's Sports Crew, the perfect podcast for you.